Tractor, which is a 4-horse little blue engine in front of us that says Eastern Counties haulage. Yes, thank you Graham for whistling there. And it's been with the Jones family since 1969. Mike Jones, a great supporter of the society and the rally, bought it, and between him and Head restored it through the 80s and 90s, and now again extensively rallied by Head. Driven today by Graham Townsend and steered by my daughter Charlotte Coombs, bless her, the lady behind the Twitter Steam Rally. It's all her fault that she's got her hands on her hips saying, "Dad, you're embarrassing." But my prerogative, I can do that. The other engine is very, very special indeed. Fowler T3 steamroller, which Hare bought in 2001. It's a Fowler steamroller from Wrexham Rural District Council, later with Denbighshire County Council, and it has been restored extensively over the last 20 years. Hare's renewed the boiler, repaired what's necessary, and it's never been rallied before. So this is one of our never seen before engines on the rally site. So absolute testimony to Hare and the family for getting it here on the road, towing the trailer, and a real credit to him for what he's done. David, you've got a parish announcement.
I have got a parish announcement, quite an urgent one. We found an EpiPen belonging to Mr. Emlyn Williams. We have now got it at rally control. That's next door to the commentators. Please come and collect it. I know how urgent it can be to some people. Mr. Emlyn Williams. Thank you.
Thanks, David. That's very important, Mr. Williams. If you are around, please do come and collect your EpiPen. One of the theme for this weekend is engines that have never been seen before, or haven't been seen for a very, very long time. It's a special pleasure for my friend of the last 30 years, Mr. Ken Milnes, to see him with his Foster Wellington tractor, Nippon Kid. Now, if anybody has made an effort to get their engine to the rally, it's Ken. Ken acquired the boiler for the engine about 15 years ago. You can read the full history of the engine in the programme. I'm not going to repeat it here, but in terms of what Ken got, he got a wreck, and very much as Alex Sharphouse did with Talisman, he brought an engine back from the dead. And Ken has worked long hours, as well as his day job, and helping other people with their engines. He has brought Nippon Kid back to life. It moved for the first time under its own power last Tuesday, and it's the first time in 82 years, that's 82 years, that it's been on the move and on the road. So a beautiful little engine, and a real credit to Ken and his family for the support they've given, because all of these engines, they're not possible without the wives, the children, the employers, the friends, that network that bring the steam world together and allow us to do what we do. So do have a look for Ken's engine. Another one, one of our other engines that is new to the site is Maggie Asprey, our Rally and Society Secretary, and her family with a Fowler K7 ploughing engine. We said about engines having lots of different applications, and ploughing being another. You'll see two ploughing engines down in the working arena. They can't join us this afternoon, but you've got Mark Jones with his Fowler compound ploughing engine, and Guy de Bez with the single, both doing the business. But Maggie and family have a very special K7 Fowler ploughing engine, which was the last steam engine ever to be owned by the British Army. And it was new to Germany and was eventually worked by the Ottermeyer business, who were very well known in Germany, Papa Ottermeyer, running ploughing Fenland around Bad Pyrmont. And the Army Royal Engineers Division acquired the engine in the early 1970s and restored it for the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977. So it's quite appropriate that it's here for the Platinum year, isn't it, really? She was the regiment's mascot until the regiment disbanded around 2006, and the engine came back to the UK. It's been extensively rebuilt by the present owner, Maggie, and family, with a lot of help from Ken and others at times. more engineering at Criggion, and a new boiler by Universal Steam Engineering. Maggie and family also present their Clayton and Shuttleworth steamroller, the 10-tonner Ironside. Clayton's of Lincoln being another well-known agricultural builder, but not so many of their steamrollers survive. But amazingly enough, steamrollers were some of the engines that lasted longest in commercial use, and Maggie's roller Ironside worked until the 60s and was used in the construction of Hinkley Point nuclear power station. So these engines have a working life going pretty much from the wooden-walled warship through to the nuclear missile. Absolutely amazing to see. Another good friend of mine is Mr. Ian Cooper with his 1914 Aveling 10-ton steamroller, which was Staffordshire County Council finally worked, and then it went into a private collection until 1964. Ian got it in 2006 and put it back on the road, but presents it very much in working condition. We see a lot of stuff that's said about engines in working clothes. Sometimes it's an excuse for them being scruffy, but Ian's engine, I know he calls it the tatty heat, but actually it's a lot nicer than that. He's extensively rebuilt it. It's had a lot of, again, a new boiler on it, but you can't see the join. It's an incredible thing and causes heads to turn wherever it goes, and I've been privileged to crew for him on a number of occasions, but by being put in the commentary box, it makes sure I'll never drive his engine again, which is perhaps a good thing for him. We talked about Adrian Porter earlier and their steam tractors that they made. We have the late Jeff Lamb K&D tractor, very nicely presented Aveling. And these engines were pretty much the equivalent of the Ford Transit doing what they did. And very, very fast, very light. They were sprung quite often, latterly on rubber tyres, and they were there to make sure that goods were delivered and general haulage undertaken. It was all to do with legislation and different weights and what that people were allowed to do with what, and the 5-ton steam tractor was the result. And we have a number of examples of that, including the Marshalls and the Fowlers also that you see on site. Heading around the arena is Joe and Vicky Black and their boys on the 10-ton Fowler roller, which started life in Gloucestershire with Dursley and then ended up in a playground in Kingston upon Hull. Once upon a time in the 60s, a lot of road rollers, steam rollers ended up in playgrounds for people to play on and maim themselves on, cut themselves on and fall off. I'd like to say it never did me any harm, but perhaps I fell on my head. But road rollers in playgrounds were a very common thing once upon a time. Now there are only 2 left. Now, there's a man going around with a water pistol. Slightly concerned about him. Do watch out for him, folks. Anyone got an umbrella? In case he shouts in here. But the Blacks have got this Fowler and they roaded it in yesterday. Very nice to see. Again, a complete family operation with the boys involved also. We talked about the size of rollers and Paul Woodcock's 6-tonner being one of the smaller regular rollers on site, but we do have a couple of smaller engines even than that, one of which is Mike Salt from when Mike has been involved showing Pepper Potts since 1973. It's a 3-ton Wallace and Stevens engine, and those of you that want to know what it looks like, it's the one with the slopey boiler at 45 degrees that looks slightly bizarre. And Pepper Pot was made, or the design was made for the export market to burn poor quality fuel. There aren't many of these engines left, there's about 6 of them today. Mike's engine comes to Salop every year and it's a great thing to see. It's a very flighty little engine, having driven it, but it's a Marmite thing. You either love it or hate it. I quite like it, so do a number of friends. But the smallest steamroller on the field is just heading out to the arena now. It's the 1-ton Trotter engine made in Gloucestershire by Mr. Trotter, pretty much for doing his path around his house. It's a super little thing and very easily to be transported. He used it to roll his paths in his driveway, but he made it in 1933. Absolutely incredible. So Jez Kirkwood brings it to us today, and I think he does win the prize for the smallest engine on the field that isn't a miniature. In front of the commentary point now is Brian Allison and family. Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, I've got that right. It's you. with Brian's tractor Oberon. It's a 1920s Aveling piston valve compound, very similar to Jeff Lamb's, but different construction of wheels, different construction of the cylinders, it's piston valve. We won't go into the details there, but Brian drives that engine everywhere on the road. It's really suited, it's light, it's fast, it's manoeuvrable, and therefore it's no surprise that his son James would also follow in the family tradition of having a steam tractor, and James's tractor is a bit earlier. It's a slide valve compound. It's a similar colour, but it has a half cab. The canopy is half length, and that engine was new to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and it came back to the UK derelict as a kit of parts in 2004, and James has rebuilt it in an amazing amount of time. Everybody here has done incredible things with their engines to get here, but also just in terms of getting restored in full stop. And James rebuilt that engine in 2021 and has driven it here, towing a living van. Absolute credit to him. Actually, credit to you, Brian, and the family as well for raising and inspiring the next generation of steam engineers. Wonderful to see. We haven't talked about Borrells for a bit, and John Johnson of Banks has bought Little Dorothy, another engine on the steam tractor mould, a slide valve, new to Malpas area of Cheshire in the 1920s, and then worked rise at Paul, a well-known contractor in Lancashire. Following in the Borrell mould is Alistair Evans and family from Bishop's Castle. We've already talked about their Showman's engine, the Philadelphia, and they also have the Spider, an agricultural engine, which has been at Bressingham Museum, but the Evanses bought it in 2006 and bring it regularly. It's a very much a working engine, and we thank Alistair for sharing it with us today. Back in the steam tractors, we have Dave and Susan Cope have their Fowler steam tractor, Lord Dovedale. Another engine that worked well into the 1960s, moving paper for Olive and Partington at Glossop in Derbyshire, and purchased by the Copes in 1988. Partington's ran 4 of these engines, and this one is the only survivor of it, and it's named Lord Dovedale in memory of Edward Partington, who became Lord Dovedale in the year that the engine was built. The Goddard family of Shrewsbury, Kinnerley, Andrew Goddard, their name is inextricably linked with the steam rally, and Andrew presents his Borrell Devonshire agricultural engine, General C.R. de Vet, and also an engine that was part of the Isaac Ball fleet of Walls. And Goddard family, David Goddard bought it in 1964, and it remains within the family. It's amazing to think that some of these engines have been in preservation for over 60 years, or 50 to 60 years, some of them with the same owners. Absolutely incredible to think of that. Moving to other engines and other makes, Marshalls of Gainsborough, and Stuart Phillips is somewhere around with his 12-ton 7-horse compound engine. Challenger, very fine-looking engine. There's lots of people who would say that Marshalls were perhaps some of the finest engineered engines in the country. Please don't throw tomatoes if you happen to like Fowlers or McLarens. Everyone has favourites, but Marshalls are particularly nice engines. The make that we haven't seen much of until now is the Garretts, Queen Mary from the Bosworth family there. Once upon a time known as Anchor, bright red and yellow by Alan Tingay, but the Bosworth family, David Bosworth, has brought it back to its original condition over 24 years, and it's lovely to see. Another engine with connections to us here for many, many years is Frank Lithgow's Foster Winnie, brought to us today by Phil Mostyn, who's also been involved with it for a very long time. A very smart engine on the Cheshire circuit, Shropshire, and well known with Lakeland and Dakin, that Frank has had it since 1976. More younger people with steam engines. We have Jeannie Walker and Ben Roberts with their 10-ton Fowler roller. At one stage with West Riding County Council, and Jeannie bought it in January 2021. An engine that's been here before, but great to see Jeannie here with her own engine in her own right. Welcome. Also good to see Phil Steer with the Marshall traction engine, the 7-horse Pearl, which has a solid flywheel. You'll see absolutely immaculate engine. shown new on the Marshall stand. So there was a special paint finish to these engines. They were very highly polished and bright burnished edges on all different parts of them. They look really good. And Phil's had that engine for nearly 30 years and given it major restoration work to bring it up to that standard. And everywhere you go, that engine is absolutely immaculate. It's wonderful to see. Bill Lowe, down in the south of England in Guildford, has brought his power steam tractor Oriana, presented today by Andrew and Margaret Tatton. Also very regular support. It's nice to see an engine from the south of England here shared with us in the Midlands. A very distinctive older engine that you'll see is the Wallace and Stevens traction engine Maynard, which is owned by Irene Briggs. Her late husband, Bill Briggs, found this engine as a wreck on the Isle of Man in the 1980s, brought it back and restored it faithfully over 17 years to as near original condition as he could make it. And bless him, when Bill passed on, Irene kept that engine, and it's maintained by Andrew Bradbury, Matthew Healy and their friends, and brought to us again in steam on the road. Aveling steamrollers we talked about. There a lot of them around. That doesn't mean they're an awful thing, it just means they're a very good product and they lasted a very long time. Aveling seem to have the edge over a lot of manufacturers, so that you see Aveling, Fowler and Marshall rollers seem to be the most numerous that remain. And just passing us there in the middle of the arena on his way out, James Andrews, Peck Andrews and Roy on Odin, which is a Somerset engine. And then not far behind them, Mr Painter and Smash. Right, that's a cracking name for a steamroller, Smash. And maybe it shouldn't necessarily call it that, maybe tempting fate, but great to see it here. And that's a single cylinder engine, which gives it that more distinctive exhaust note because the steam is used once, it makes that chuck, whereas a compound engine uses steam twice and its exhaust note is a little bit more subdued. And then Kerry and Joe Shadbolt with the Wallace and Stevens Advance from 1927. It's the grey steamroller that you see, looks a little bit like a battleship. It's a marvellous engine, once again undertaken major boiler work to make it here. The Advance was an engine for quick reverse, designed to work on asphalt, because by the 1920s the road makeup had changed. The Shadbolt family also with them have got their Wallace and Stevens traction engine Panther, big 8 horsepower engine, which spent a lot of its working life in Wiltshire and now comes to us from Malpas. And the Jones family, John Jones also, with his Marshall Agricultural, rode it in this morning, Triumph Salopian. This engine was involved in the early days of steam rallies with Edmund Kimball in 1952, where it all began, and then the present owner bought it in 1984. Another engine with local connections historically, but it has made huge efforts to travel a very long distance to be with us today, is the Clayton and Shuttleworth steam tractor Apollo. It is unique, it's the only Clayton and Shuttleworth steam tractor in existence, and new in 1920, but entered preservation in 1950 with Michael Salmon, the late Michael Salmon, who had so much to do with this society and steam engine preservation in general. But it's now owned by Peter Thompson up in Northumberland. Peter I've known for the last 18 years, but he's had the engine for 33 years, and it's super to see it back in the county of Salop once again. So thank you very much, Peter, for bringing it to share with us. Back to general purpose traction engines, and there's Ian Holt with the Burrell single crank compound. That's another variation on how the steam is used within the cylinders to make it more efficient. And Old Dutch, it's a nice green Burrell. I said I wasn't going to talk about different colours of engines, like here's a green one, here's a red one, but sometimes it's the only way you can distinguish them. But again, down from Doncaster and with us today. Very different steamrollers once more, with Phil Moody and Dave Riley both bringing their Roby tandem rollers with us, once again for working on asphalt. And Dave Riley refers to his as the Mistress. I'm sure there's a story there to tell. Each of our engines, sometimes our wives, daughters, girlfriends would refer to it as the other woman, and perhaps there's a grain of truth in there. Then Richard Bridge with the Burrell roller, pride of Somerset, Also with a very famous name, its original ownership, W.J. King's of Bishop's Lydiard. They had engines on their premises for many, many years, and Richard Bridge and family bought Trident Somerset in 1977. And apart from a small break for fitting a new firebox, it's been rallied every year between now and then. A very small little black steamroller at the end of the arena there is a little Fowler, a 9-tonner called Titch, although 9 tons isn't really that titchy, owned by Alison Morrison, and worked in South Africa as a tar sprayer and then brought back to England in the 80s. Alison tells me she got so fed up of waiting for her husband to restore his steamroller that she bought the Fowler. And well, I think that says it all, doesn't it really? But thanks, Alison, for bringing it here. Other engines that are around the place is Graham Townsend with his compound Aveling roller, which was new to Morecambe, but then owned by the late Tom Varley, which is a name very much, again, in steam preservation history. Raymond Pearson with his Aveling compound, Rusty Nuts. I think that's a comment on the state of some of the fittings when it came apart. He's just leaving the arena there. But again, beautifully presented engine, once new to Hereford County Council, and a really, really nicely presented machine. And also another Fowler Survivor. Again, the names of these engines, they tell their own stories, don't they? And Stephen Allen Baker of Kidderminster got Survivor, which came back from Portugal and in 1997. No, it came back from Portugal in 1981 and then lay derelict until 1997. And Allen spent 9 years restoring it. Again, something absolutely incredible. Engines from the UK were sent all over the world. And so, yes, we've talked about Portugal, we've talked about the Argentine. Richard Hesbrook's engine, the Foden Colonial traction engine, big green Foden with big red wheels, came back from Tasmania. Engines from all over the world. Richard's worked hard to restore it from a pile of pieces, and again, a joy for us to see. Sometimes, like with the small engines we saw this morning, it's not necessarily possible to recreate or rebuild something if it's gone. So we have the Foster steam tractor from 2009, which is a faithful full-size engine, a replica of a full-size engine built to original drawings of Foster, but it's a 2009 engine, so its registration is FX09. I bet you some of you have driven in cars older than that to get with us today. But lovely to see Bob Bailey bring that, and say 2009. We also have Peter Flitcroft's new build Ruston steam tractor, the Little Brown, three-horse engine, quite a flighty little thing, but performs very well on the road. Also, for a bit of fun, Jonathan Brigazzi with the Brigazzi steam buggy, which looks a bit like a milk float, and as he says, built to satisfy a desire to own a steam vehicle. This buggy is made up from parts. There's no historical prototype, but it's a bit of steam-powered fun, because he wanted to own a steam engine. How lovely is that? Outside the arena now, they've all pretty much left us, and time is running out, but a number of Sentinel steam lorries. We can't do Shrewsbury Steam Rally without talking about Sentinels, who always built steam wagons, not lorries, steam wagon with a double G, wagagun. I think that's how you pronounce it. And wonderful to see such a wide selection of them, from Harrison's 1921 engine that was worked with Brown Bailey Steelworks. Brown Bailey's in Sheffield were working steam wagons, got it now, until the 1960s. There's a bit of an altercation going on here in the arena. I think there's something going on with the arena manager and the chairman. And I think there's physical violence being offered. Come on, Mr. Goddard, this is not the thing. He's armed. You can see he's got a weapon. He's got a water pistol. Oh gosh, Steph, can you go and get him? Oh, he's left his bike. Oh, Mr. Cooper, what have you done? Oh, Ian. That's why Ian doesn't want me to drive his engine. But then again, he's just squashed our man's bike. That's one for the insurance, isn't it? Deary, deary me. Steph, get a grip. That's one bike that isn't going to be in the parade now. What are we going to do? You dreadful, dreadful people. Just to finish on the Sentinels, a wide variety of them. We've got about 15 on display, and ranging from the standard Sentinels, the earlier ones from the 1920s, through the supers, the super tractors and super wagons, DG, double geared, David and Kay Hilditch with their tar sprayer from Lloyd Jones of Ribbin. Again, an engine very, very well known in the arena and in the area, and worked very, very lately commercially into the 1980s. It worked so late that here's the shameless plug, I was able to put it on the front cover of my steam lorry book. David, you're going to say something about this bad lad.
Yeah, this very bad lad's got to report to the headmaster's study. Haven't you, young man?
No, look at him, he's unrepentant.
Report to the headmaster's study immediately.
I'm not sure if he's laughing or crying there, David. And
if he's expecting a whipping, he's out of luck.
Sentinel Super from Malcolm Rogers. Edward Goddard, Sentinel DG, presented in the livery of Morris's Oils and featured in the Channel 4 series Salvage Squad when they rebuilt it against the clock. And again, another friend of ours from the northeast of England, Richard Strong, with his DG8, 8-wheeled Sentinel, very distinctive machine. Also good to see it here, as is the Stafford family, Harry Stafford and Howard, down from Hawke in the spring. There seems to be something about the northeast theme for some of these engines coming down, but great to see them, as it is with the Gould family, with the various Sentinels. Sentinel S4, three-way tipper, which was with prices at all, which David spoke about a few minutes ago, but also the Devon Trading Company, the Lion, from Teignmouth Quay, which worked shunting railway trucks very much as those horses would have done, we saw earlier this afternoon. And Peter Walker and Diane Carney's amazing Sentinel S6, which is a superb tipper presented in the livery of Tarmac.